What's up, guys? Welcome back. We are going to look at a different topic today. We're looking at the election of 1960. This could be used for modern American history in the future years, but they've already done that. So really, this is just for United States history as of right now. I'm going to break this down into three different videos. First, we're going to meet the candidates. So first video will be about John F. Kennedy. The second one will be about Richard Nixon. And the third one will be about the results in the election itself. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you're staying safe out there. Hopefully we can see each other soon. So who is John F. Kennedy? That's a question that today we are going to explore. It's a question that we have to explore in order to understand the election of 1960. And it's a question that we have to explore for the direction that America is going to shift in over the next 3 to 4 decades. I'm sure you've heard of John F. Kennedy. I'm sure that you've seen pictures of John F. Kennedy. You probably recognize the idea that he was a dashing, handsome, young president who had lots of good speeches and unfortunately was assassinated. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories that surround that. But we have to take a look back. We have to look to see who was Kennedy at an early age prior to being in the spotlight so much. We have to go all the way back to where he was born. He was born in 1917 in Brookline, Massachusetts. He was born into a family that in today's day and age, I think that we could probably all agree on is probably one of the closest things to royalty in the United States, the Kennedys. Was the Kennedy family always filthy rich? No, they had humble beginnings, but by the time that the children in this family were born, they were very wealthy. The source of a lot of their money, it's controversial, so a lot of people say it could have been in the Prohibition era, but we can dive into that later. But he's born into a very wealthy family, the kind of families that go sailing and take trips up to Cape Cod and have summer homes and things like that. A different level of wealth that most of us really aren't familiar with. He comes from a line of politicians. His grandfather on his father's side, P.J. Kennedy, was a state representative in Massachusetts. His grandfather on his mother's side was Honey Fitzgerald, the two-term Boston mayor, and also a U.S. congressman. So politics is nothing new to this family or these families. So Jack Kennedy is born into a very large family. Just so you know, Jack is just another name that people call John F. Kennedy, more of a nickname. Do I know why Jack and John have nicknames for each other? No, I don't. I don't understand that. Maybe we should look it up. But we will be referring to JFK as Jack a lot. Now he's the second oldest in his family. There's going to be a total of nine children, so lots of kids. And these kids are not going to live the normal life that me and you probably grew up with. They're going to be away from home for long periods of time at boarding schools and camps and things like that. But as time goes on, and especially the two older boys get older and they're going to these private schools, you start to see Jack Kennedy act out a little bit. He's living in the shadow of his older brother. And anybody who has an older brother probably understands that, as I do. But his brother was a great athlete. His brother was a great student, and he was just revered by everybody. And Jack starts to act out. He starts to play pranks on people. He starts dating more and more girls. Grades start to slip a little bit. And just a little bit more of a rebel, a little bit more rebellious. Now, also during this time period, Jack starts to notice that he has some health problems. In fact, most of the time that you see the pictures of President Kennedy and stuff, he was a very sickly man. This goes all the way back to his adolescence. He ends up doing really well in school and getting into Princeton University, where once again this idea of the illness that he had, which eventually will be identified or diagnosed as colitis, which is an intestinal issue, will have him bed-stricken, and he'll have to leave Princeton University and take some time away from school. Later on, he would join Harvard. He loved the idea of being a Harvard man. His father was a Harvard man. He was on the swim team there, the varsity swimmer, and would do well at Harvard. later on, his father became an ambassador for President Franklin Roosevelt in the United Kingdom. So Kennedy toured Europe right before World War II and um, really started getting very involved and very interested in kind of the political dynamics that you see in Europe right as the war is about to break out. I would say that he really kind of gets his first glimpse of fame or recognition when he finishes um, his thesis that would later on be titled "Why England Slept," and it's the kind of his opinion in the story behind the appeasement agreement and why Great Britain participated in it with Neville Chamberlain, and we talked about that earlier in class. So I'm not going to go back and review that. But as the war starts, his brother is a pilot in the war. His brother, unfortunately, is going to end up getting killed in a plane crash, which kind of starts a long legacy of plane crashes for the Kennedy family. It's horrible. Um, and John or Jack, he joins the military as well. Being a sickly person, it didn't seem likely that he'd be able to do so. But coming from a powerful family, knowing the right people, pulling the right strings, he is put into the Navy, and it's kind of where he gets a lot of his notoriety early on in his life because he's in charge of this boat called PT 109 in the South Pacific. And long story short, and I can send you some stuff on it if you want. His ship was sunk, and he's able to use those Harvard swimming skills that I mentioned earlier to swim all of his um, crew members to a nearby island and end up getting them rescued, which later on is going to come into big when you're campaigning and you can say that you were a war hero and stuff like that. So that's really good. But Kennedy, when he gets back from the war, his brother was the one originally that was supposed to be this politician, but now that's shifted to him, and you'll see him be elected into the House of Representatives, and then you'll see him elected into the Senate, and eventually he's going to make a run at the presidency in 1960. He's a very different candidate from Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon is older. He's well groomed. He was the vice president for Eisenhower for 8 years. He's been in Washington for a long time. A Republican. Kennedy, very young, experienced, yes, but as experienced as a vice president and former congressman, not really. Well liked, of course, not by Dwight Eisenhower, though. He refers to him as like a daddy's boy or something like that. So it is going to be an interesting election with two very different candidates. And I hope you enjoy the next video.